start this recording and let's get this underway. Just minimize here. So again, my name is Brian Six, and I am a systems engineer here at Novell, and you've got my email address here. So hopefully there are no issues with emailing me. I try to keep my email address as easy as I can. If there are any troubles, I'm hoping everyone can see my screen. I can take a look here, and it looks like my screen should be visible to everyone, so that's good. So today's topic of conversation is Novell Service Desk, and it's a very important offering for Novell. It falls in line with our ZENworks grouping of products, though it in and of itself isn't tied to ZENworks particularly in terms of it doesn't need it to work. It certainly has particular integrations with it, but it works with many other systems that people may be using for desktop management, that kind of thing. But it does fall into that area of ZENworks. Now, if I take a look at the next slide here, one of the issues that people deal with is that the communication between, if you will, the quote-unquote business and IT, you know, has always been a little less around process and oriented and directed ways of communication, and it's more along the lines of, hey, if I see somebody walking down the hall, can you come here and fix this for me, and throwing things over the fence. And so it's a little bit disorganized in some cases. And what you end up with, without a different way of doing things, what you end up with is no single system of record for decision making. So if things are all, if I'm emailing 5 people to see if they can help me with my problem, and 3 of the 5 tend to respond back, and I've got a disjointed system, no one really knows where we are with trying to resolve this particular issue. And when I don't have a place to go in and run reports to determine and derive metrics about, you know, the systems at large for my organization, it makes it very hard for me to really do a better job this year than last year when I don't really know how last year went. So, you know, it tends to make the management of and maintenance of an entire, you know, network infrastructure much more cumbersome. And I've already got all of these separate systems that I'm trying to maintain, and I've got to find ways of doing upgrades and, you know, applying service packs and the like. And what we need to do is figure out, how do we get this done while keeping everybody else happy, making sure we don't attempt to update the payroll server on the same day that they were going to run paychecks anyway, right? We don't want those kinds of things to happen. And so if you take a look at a more united front, you have a more cohesive methodology of having requests coming in for processing and then messaging coming back about the services provided and the updating of the particular request. So if a request has come in to upgrade a server, upgrade a server to a newer version because there are some features that a particular department is looking for, there needs to be proper communication back, and there needs to be proper documenting of that whole process, so that later on I can go in and do reports and get metrics about the requests and things that have been asked for, you know, over time. And all of that is lost if we don't have a united front. And so Novell offers our Service Desk product that is the solution to this particular problem. And our goal is to get the folks that are actually, you know, that are doing work and the guys that are doing IT on the same page as we're trying to establish, here's what we can do as IT. So here are the services and things that we offer. And when you need to ask for something, or if you need support for something, here are the proper channels to do it. It's not just willy-nilly make it up out of your head. Here is the way we do things. And so we bring this offering to the table in two flavors. One is an incident management only version, if you will, and if you look on the left-hand side here, it has incident management plus some other processes available. And we also then offer a full ITIL service management, which includes everything that incident management offers, but then rounds out the offering by getting into problem management, change management, service catalogs, release and deployment management, service portfolios, even diving into some of the financial management of things. So it's a much greater offering. But different people, different organizations have, they're at a certain stage in their sort of their IT world, and some are just interested in incident, and some have moved beyond that and are interested in all of the rest of the offerings. And so we bring to the market two different ways of getting into this. You can start with the incident management version and then upgrade that to the ITIL service management version without any loss of data. There's no reinstalling and everything. It's just a license change, and off you go. So there are a couple goals that we want to accomplish with a solution like Novell Service Desk. One is, let's build a knowledge base so that we can repurpose the solutions to past issues. So as technicians, those of us working on tickets and working on the problems internally to solve them, let's take the work that we've done and let's be able to repurpose that so that, at some point in time later we can revisit how we solved a particular problem in the past to hopefully jump on that and solve it faster in the future. And if I've already got this data stored, when the system recognizes certain requests that match a previous request, go ahead and auto-suggest, even if they're not exactly the same, go ahead and auto-suggest a couple things that might be solutions. At least give me something to go on. And when there are things that are repetitive that we find that we have to type a response that is very common many times. So if it's a particular application that generates an error and there's a log file that we need to get to the bottom of it and determine the root cause, let's allow me to create response templates that I can fire back quickly without having to retype the 15 steps necessary to get something done. Allow me to do that so that I can get my job done a whole lot faster. And when it comes to tracking time and being able to deal with what we call service level agreements, if you choose to employ these features, service level agreements allow us to add time to a request in terms of when did you respond and how long did it take to find a workaround and how long did it take to find a resolution to the problem. And so we include those kinds of components in the system along with workflows and approval stages for certain kinds of requests. And so the idea would be, if you want to reboot and apply a support pack to a particular server, let's say the payroll server is the example I gave earlier, let's have an approval stage in there so that whoever is the manager over that department, let them be a part of this process, and let's send them a request basically making sure that a particular time is okay for doing this particular action. Rebooting a server, applying a service pack, what have you. And so again, let's unite the two different areas together, and by leveraging approval stages within workflows, we can get that done, or at least begin doing that within Novell Service Desk. And one thing that's very interesting when you start to leverage the impact analysis components that are inside of Novell Service Desk, being able to take a configuration management database, a CMDB, which is basically the database component of Novell Service Desk that contains all of your assets, the different kinds of workstations and the applications and the services that are used within your organization, and the things that are provided by the IT team. Being able to take certain assets and define the relationship between them and something else. So, for example, I might have a database farm and different applications that leverage those databases. Let me draw lines, basically, if you will, think of them that way, on a piece of paper, draw lines between the application servers and the databases that support them, and be able to display that inside of this service desk system, be able to display that when I need to make a decision on what kind of impact is a particular outage having on the network. If a particular database server is down, what applications did that database server support? So I know what people are being affected by this. Let's put this together. And it is sort of a manual process. There's unfortunately nothing that magically knows what's connected where, but the effort is certainly worthwhile because it gives people that are within the the sort of the purview of managing all of these requests, gives them better visibility and knowing what the impact analysis is going to be of either a current outage or a planned outage that's coming up on the weekend. Let's go ahead and let everybody know early what kind of effect this is going to have on the network if a system has to go down. And then I guess lastly, if I'm using these knowledge base articles for technicians to help solve problems quickly in the future, why not expose that to the users when you want to, and allow them to be able to do their own sort of self-help. If they are capable of doing a lookup because they found that is a faster way than submitting a request, go ahead and let them try to do that. And so, our knowledge base articles can be both visible to internal IT as well as almost external, if you will, to the customers, the people that we are servicing out there. We chose to build and continue to support all of the best practices that ITIL brings to the table, and ITIL's it's almost becoming a standard, if you will, because people, when customers are looking for solutions, they're typically looking for something that is ITIL founded, and that is a sort of a best practices way of approaching the way that we provide our services. And so Novell Service Desk leverages the ITIL Foundation, and that's what we base everything on. We will leverage your directory as well, because your directory already contains usernames and passwords, and there's really no reason to go in and recreate that wheel. So let's go ahead and leverage that information so that users don't have to have another name, another password. Once you disable a user inside of your directory, they're immediately unable to log into Service Desk because those two are tied together. And I mentioned the service level agreements, and we touched on the workflows, and we provide a set of them for you that are predefined so that even if which will actually work for many people, but if you want to go beyond that, at least it's a jump start, a jumping off point, if you will, to begin creating a brand new customized version of it. So it gives you a place to start. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have some cool integration with ZENworks. We do asset importing from ZENworks based on the inventory scans that it does. We can actually accomplish this with other third-party systems, the Landesks and Altirises and of the world, and then others, because we have a template that we can import from. But we specifically go beyond that and allow from within the Service Desk interface the ability to do remote control of desktops, So sometimes, or I would say many times, the requests that are coming in, require some remote session to resolve. And then assigning bundles, which is effectively application delivery to a desktop, both of those can be done right from within the Service Desk interface, so that you don't have to leave that particular environment to accomplish those two particular tasks. Now, just real briefly, the folks at Pink Elephant, who are the certifiers of all the application vendors out there that support ITIL, have published sort of what the benefits are, and I don't have to, it's not necessary to go through each one of these, but this is just to show you that there is a lot of thought between ITIL, what it means, what it does, how it gets applied, and so that's important to many people that are looking to move to a system that supports ITIL, and so therefore we want to be there supporting that as well. So it's a big piece of what we do. Now, some benefits of Novell Service Desk. First of all, fully web-based environment. It completely leverages a browser for both the administration, the daily use of, as well as a place for the end users to submit their requests from. So their own little portal, if you will, to be able to create requests. Everything is leveraged within a browser. However, we do offer for the smaller iPhone, Android-based systems I say smaller, on the more of the phone style formats, since it's the browser on a device like that would be hampered by the real estate, we've actually provided applications that run on both Android and iOS to allow technicians, at the very least, be able to manage their tickets, take a look at what their ticket count is and the service level agreements that may be out there, and keep an eye on things for them. We do provide both versions that I showed you the picture of, or the slide of, where we have the incident management only and full ITIL. Both are available as either an installer or as a pre-built VMware virtual appliance. So those are both available to you. The VMware virtual appliance is basically the application and the operating system all together, already installed. It requires just the applying of an IP address and networking information, and now you're able to log in and begin to do things with that. Again, we are supporting 11 out of the 13 ITIL processes that are out there. Those are the 11 that make sense for an IT environment like this, and we'll leverage some common communication methods like email or SMS messaging to communicate with both the person who creates a ticket, so a customer of ours, if you will, as well as all the technicians and all the interaction between them. We'll leverage email as a notification method to alert someone that a new ticket has been created, or thank you for creating the new ticket, or your technician has requested you try something. And this is all at least communicated through email. And the cool thing is that when we notify through email, if a response is made in email versus going into the web browser and updating the information within the actual application, if it's just replied to in the email, we actually take those replies and add those to the notes, just as if someone would have done that through the application interface. So email is, and then SMS texting, very integrated in the product. Users can submit requests via the portal, as I just described. They can actually submit requests just by sending an email. They can initiate something with an email, not just in response to. So email becomes another method for doing that, as well as being able to just simply pick up the phone and call in and have somebody create one on their behalf. And we've got a very open interface for integration with third-party systems. I give an example here, network monitoring tools. We created a blog that described, and we picked a network monitoring tool called Nagios. It's a very popular open source product that's out there. How would you integrate that in with Novell Service Desk so that an alert or some kind of threshold that was breached from within that monitoring tool would allow that monitoring tool to submit a request into Novell Service Desk, hopefully before anyone has even realized that this has happened. So we have this integration points that are open that make it real easy to really take full advantage of Service Desk, even with the, if I will, the third-party systems that are out there. Now, one thing that I don't want to forget to mention is that for those people that are current ZENworks customers, they have an entitlement to 2 licenses for incident management, as you can see down here. So there is a 2-user license already available to you to download. It is the incident management only version. It can be upgraded just like everything else, but we wanted to make sure that this was available to our ZENworks customers to at least bring it up, kick the tires, particularly if you're using a competitive solution, and give you a chance to see what ours does compared to what you have, and if in the end the result is you like ours better, great. We can talk about expanding the 2 to more, and if you would like to stay with what you have, so be it. That's your choice. But we wanted to make sure that you at least had something to kick the tires with. Now I bring up this slide because it's interesting. Is Service Desk just for IT? Well, the answer is no, and in fact, there are many organizations out there, some that are pretty large, and they're leveraging it for more of a building facilities management kind of thing. So, in the same way that someone may want to report that their computer keeps blue screening, a person may want to report on or initiate a request around a sink that leaks in the bathroom, or a light fixture that is out in the hallway, or how do normally, if you think about this, how do you report something like that, a broken door handle or hinge or something like that? And those items are similar to the kinds of request and respond kind of thing that goes on within the network and IT. So don't think that this can't be used for other kinds of environments. So if you happen to run across them, mention that they could take a look at a system like ours to help solve their recording of a request, the processing and sort of the management of the goings on that solves it, and then being able to bring it to closure and then document all the information about that. So it's very important. Just note that for people to think about. So that's all the time I wanted to spend on the slide deck. I didn't want to jump in and spend the entire time just on that. I'm going to take a moment to see if there are any questions out there. And let's see. There is. You can hear me fine. Yay, finally good. This is really interesting. Thank you. And then Jim is asking, what about human resources? What about human resources? Not quite sure. Not quite sure, Jim, what that means. We were when we were looking at this, thinking about the onboarding idea, the way that Service Desk can interact with the human resources department in the way that Service Desk is built is that usually, yes, onboarding, thanks. So usually there are, when a new hire comes in, depending on the role that they're coming in as, they're going to need, pretty much everyone's going to need an email account, they're going to need a phone system account, they're going to need a lot of these kinds of things. And then depending on the departments that they're in, they're going to need access to certain applications that are very specific to their role. So from within Novell Service Desk, we handle that by creating what we would call a group template. And what a group template does is it says, okay, I know that you're going to have some things that are generic, email, phone system, security badge, everyone's going to get those. But then there may be some things that are very specific to the roles they're going to have. And so what the group templates do is they group together individual requests that would normally have to be created on their own. It groups these kinds of requests into a single template name called, new hire for, finance. And if I create a request against, this item called new hire for finance, it submits the 15 different steps automatically so that I'm not creating them. Now, it does track each one individually because I want to know, who and when did each individual task get accomplished, but it saves me the time of having to remember the 15 different requests for that particular role, and I don't have to do each one manually. And then when they're all completed, that individual task, if you will, is then finally completed. So it knows what things are that it is linked to and then closes out everything once they're all accomplished. And you can, and as a technician or a manager, I can go in and see where are we with accomplishing each one of those tasks. And so that's sort of the level in which we would interact with a sort of a human resources onboarding kind of thing. Now, the next question was, is it a CRM? And I would say no, it is not designed. It is not a Salesforce.com kind of CRM. I guess I'd have to have some more details on what might it have that you might be able to leverage around a CRM, but it's really not designed as much as a CRM, but it is more designed to take and manage the sort of the requests that come in from your users, and we call them customers, that contingent of people, and relate them to the assets and the things that they're using that are causing problems, and then do all kinds of cool reporting and that kind of thing. Is there a way to link Service Desk to a phone system? So I would say yes, a couple ways. I'm not quite sure what we would try to accomplish, but if there are things that are coming in from the phone system, like if I'm able to leave messages and that phone system is able to create an email from that, then I could take that message and use it to deliver an email into Service Desk, and that would be a real easy way to do it. I also have some SOAP interfaces, so some of the open interfaces on Service Desk that would allow me to take those, I guess, something coming from the phone system and be able to suck that in and process that and create requests from that. So perhaps some more details would be helpful around the phone system. We are using ZENworks. What 2 licenses mean? Having 2 instances of a VM. So hopefully I've answered that, but having ZENworks 2 licenses means the way that we license the product is by technician, not by instances of the application running. So if you have 5 people, so let me just tell you what a technician is. Technicians are people who either create tickets, and let me separate that from customers, because your customers create tickets as well, but they don't count. These are technicians that would, for example, create a ticket on behalf of someone who's called in over the phone. There are also people who manage tickets. They go in and they update the ticket status, they add notes, or they close a ticket out and modify it in some fashion. So that's how we license it, based on those kinds of technicians, not on instances of particular VM. Any plans to send a notification when the ticket is updated via the web app? So there is if you will, a notification in the web app, in that the icon for the instance of the request changes to show you that it's not been read since it was last updated. So that's really the only notification from inside there. We have no pop up a window. It doesn't do anything like that to notify you of the update. Email sort of has its own notification system. People have it connected to their iPhones and iPads and all kinds of things. So it sort of was an easy way to sort of get that in front of you. The same with SMS texting. But outside of changing the icon to show you that there's been an update, we don't really do much else in terms of notification. I do have a link for the Nagios blog. You can either search for it, Novell Service Desk and Nagios. Just do a quick search and you'll find the blog. My email address is b6@novell.com. Just email me, and I'll forward that to you. And then for onboarding, can the workflow be enabled for the many steps? Absolutely. The workflow can be configured and changed any way you would like. And in fact, you can even have individual workflows for the steps that are being done, so that there's a workflow for phone systems that might be different than the workflow for adding you to the security system, because the security system may require a couple additional steps depending on your role and what you have to have access to. So you could have, you know, individual workflows kind of making all that work together. The connection between Nagios and Service Desk is not based on email notification. It is a web services leveraging interface. It is not email. Now, email would certainly be an easy one if you have a ticket. If you have a network monitoring system like Nagios, but maybe different. If it has the ability to send an email when there's something that's encountered, you can certainly have that send an email into Service Desk, and voila, a ticket gets created. And that's sort of your, you know, worst case scenario. You can do that. We can actually take it and, from more of a programmatic perspective, create a request that might have a little bit more configuration information in it, because we know specifically what the problem is, and we can do some special things around that. So if you have 20 technicians, do you need 10 licenses? So if you have 20 technicians, you basically need 20 licenses. There's a license per person. Now, we provide you 2 if you own ZENworks. So if you had ZENworks, out of the 20, you would only need 18. So we could provide you at least 2 of those. But every technician needs its own license. And it is named. It is not shared. I get that question asked a lot. They are named licenses. And yes, can an escalation rule be placed when a ticket's overdue? That would send an email. All of that is in the system. That's part of that time tracking thing I mentioned earlier. We know how long it's been since a ticket's been created, and we do all kinds of notifications and escalating and all kinds of things like that when you start to reach that particular time stamp, if you will. And we actually have a mechanism that lets you say, well, if I'm 50% there, do something, and when I'm 80% there, do something else, kind of idea. So we can do it based on percentage. And someone's posted something there on the developer thing. Marco has. I'm guessing that is to the integrations. I'm not quite sure, but hopefully, yeah, for the Nagios stuff. So cool. We even did a we even posted a I'll show you the interface here. I want to get into the demo, but we have a lot of reporting functions built into Service Desk, and there is an open sourced reporting engine like a Crystal Reports called Pentaho, and we actually have created a whole article on how to integrate Service Desk with Pentaho in the event that you want to do your own custom reporting and building of things. So you can even read that and learn about our database, how you would connect it to a Crystal Reports kind of product, and off you go. So I'm going to minimize the questions. You can still post them, and we will grab a few of those at the end. But this is the interface. I've logged into Service Desk as a particular user named Ron. He's actually a supervisor, so he's got technician privileges as well as a couple other super privileges. And what Ron sees in this particular view screen is he sees the different kinds of requests that are out there. Some are change requests, some are problems with P's, some are incidents that are the I's, some are service requests, those are R's. So we designate them on the screen for you to quickly find out the different kinds of requests that you have. Now, I am viewing things through a particular filter called my Teams task, so I'm seeing everything for the different teams that I'm on, and I've got other filters that are just my tasks, and so therefore it cut out all my teams. And these filters are created because these actually are the defaults. But I can create other filters when I want to see things a little bit more specifically. So if I want to see all the things based on priority, so instead of just toggling, which I can do to sort, I might just want to view only my high priority items, or I might want to view just items from a particular user. In fact, the way that I do that is I create a search filter, and then of course as I build out certain requests here, things will change dynamically on the screen. But as you can see here, I might want to search for all items that have a network address 10.0.0. Something, and there, I'm looking for all things that are on a particular network subnet, because I think maybe there's something bigger wrong than just this one person who can't log on, because I've got 7 people saying they can't log on. So let's go see if the whole, if there's more things related to that particular network subnet. And the idea would be I fill this out, and when I search and I get my results back, I can then save that filter so they don't have to keep retyping the information. So one thing might be searching for everything based on a certain priority, or searching for certain things based on a particular name. So if I'm looking for a particular user all the time, or we actually recognize the organizational units people are from based on the directory importing, so I can pull in things by that. And I might even be searching for things based on the kind of network or the kind of printer that I'm looking for. So the idea would be I can find, search for, and then save that as a filter. So it's a great way for customization of what you would like to see here. And then, of course, all the information here can be published to a PDF or a spreadsheet or RSS, communicated for anyone that wants to do those kinds of feeds. And I've even got a link button here. So when I see those 5 requests, imagine, these first 5 here being against the same kind of thing. It's a printer that won't print, or trying to think of what else, an application that I can't log into, and there's 5 people that say they can't log into it. I can link those together so that I can create a grouping, and then I can work on one of those groups items or one of the requests, and as I modify that request, it modifies all the others to match. So everything stays lockstep, and when I close out the one incident, all the other incidents close as well, because they're all linked together, so I can group them. And this display that you're seeing across the screen here can be customized in terms of the columns that you see. No one has to see the same, or they can. I have a dashboard that lets me monitor, different things. Some of the requests are going to have graphical pictures like this, and some of them may be streams, sort of like Twitter feeds, if you will, of just the constant updates and things that are coming in within the system. I mentioned earlier that technicians are the ones that are licensed. We could also have people that are managers. These are people we call the role a manager, but what it is, it's a role of a person who can come in, run reports, get a dashboard, but can't manage a particular ticket or close or update or anything like that. They're just viewers, consumers of data. So if you've got people like that, they can still come into the system and take advantage of all this kind of stuff. So my tasks and my dashboard become the 2 places that are going to be my go-tos for finding things to do. What am I looking at? Gosh, there's so much in this system. I can't. Every time I stop for a second, I can think of something else to talk about. We have the ability to create quick calls. I note these because when things are repetitive, I talked earlier about the response templates, and when things are repetitive, resetting password is a very common repetitive thing. People are always asking for reset password. Well, I can create a quick call which makes it easy for an end user, they're called customers in our case, for a customer to be able to submit a request for resetting their password. And so it's a one-click thing, and I'll demonstrate that when I get into the customer portal, but it makes it real easy for them to submit a request to reset a password. And so I can create as many of these quick calls as I need based on the environment that I'm in, the kind of people that I have, and the culture that we've got going on. So this is sort of a living, breathing kind of list of things. And then we'll take these quick calls because we'll have add phone account, security badge request, and I can group those together, as I talked earlier, in the group template called New Hire. And you can have as many of these group templates as you want, each one respective to a particular role of a hire that you're going to have. But those quick calls can be then grouped together to create a group template, and therefore you submit one request against a new hire, and then the 15 things required to get that done, those will occur. Now let's jump over here and take a look at the customer interface. This is what customers see when they log in. They have the ability to create brand new requests. I've got the full incident management program out there, or version out there, so I've got service catalogs available to me so I can see what's available. This screen here shows me the current requests that are outstanding, waiting on resolution. Each one of them I can click on to see what their status is and who's working on that particular item. We've got a chat function built in that if one of the technicians that when my requests are assigned to, so I've got 7 or so in my list here, if one of those technicians are logged on, then the chat function lets me communicate with him to be able to ask him particular questions. I mean, we all know what chat does, but the important thing with this chat is that all of that chat information goes into the notes section of the request, so I don't lose any of the conversation and dialogue that's occurred for a particular request. Very important to keep all of that. So when a user or customer goes to create a request, my new request button brings up this particular screen. From here, I can choose, for example, as I said, reset password. So all my quick calls are here, so I can click that, and it's basically put up everything that I need. In this case, email, because the quick call was called reset email password. It's basically waiting for me to hit the save button and the request is submitted. They don't have to really type anything else. It's a 1-2 punch, and they've created a request for that. Alternatively, I could have done a little bit more customization and allowed them to, maybe this would say just reset password, and then down in here they could tell me what kind of password is it they want me to reset. It can be a little bit more general than as specific as that. I could have also said reset password and then given them a drop down that they could have selected the application kind of thing that they wanted to reset their password for. So a couple of different ways to skin that animal. I can also allow people to, and again, there's the new hire we talked about that would submit all 15 requests. I can let people do individual one-offs. So if they have a new incident that they have a problem with, and it's a piece of hardware, and it's their D6300 laptop, I can allow them to select that from the list and type in what their problem is. Blue screens all the time. And submit a request that way. The drop downs, what is available, my choices, those kinds of things are all customizable. That is all part of what you would do back in the configuration side of things, and I'll quickly go over there in just a second. But don't get too hung up on what this looks like in the particular drop-down choices, because those can change. Everyone's different, and they've got their own way of doing it, and there's lots of recommendations and ways to encourage people. But just know I've got some really cool ways to submit requests and add attachments, which are important if I've got a supporting document that goes with the particular item I'm sending in. That's pretty important to me. So I'm going to jump back over to the user portal and talk about that configuration information. There, the ITIL definition around an asset ties an item to a type to a category, and the idea is you begin at a very high level with categories like hardware and software. And within those categories, you have the types of hardware and software that would be in production within your network. And then within a particular type would be the actual item that people would be creating requests against. So that would be the particular printer that's of type HP that's in a category called printers. And it's the thing that has, it's the thing that you touch, or the application that you actually interact with. So that it's the email application that's of type desktop applications that's in the category of software. And there's all kinds of ways to define your categories and your types and your items. They're all customizable. So depending on what makes sense to you and how you want them named, all of that's customizable as you build the system out. And so you've got a lot of opportunity there to control that. Now, when everything is said and done and requests are coming into the system, as a technician, I talked about the fact that I see these different filters, and one of them is my teams task. So that alludes to the notion that we have teams, and you can define teams within Service Desk. And so we do that. And teams can be, we will have default incident change, problem, and request. Those are just going to be there when you turn on the system. But you can create your own teams. They will have their own team memberships. You define who they are and what they are. And when you do so, you start to control and customize what the teams are. Each team can handle certain kinds of requests. So I can say all email requests go to a team. Now, that team may only have one person in it, and that's perfectly okay. But what that does is that it controls that all email requests, when they come into the system, they may always go to this one person because he's the only one that does email. Why would I want to give the request to somebody else? The alternative would be I could send it to, email requests could come into a more generic team. So maybe I have like a frontline set of people that own and answer the phones. They can try to work on everything, and if they can't solve it, they have the ability to do escalations. And they may look at a request, and I'll bring one up here. They may look at this request and work on it for as long as they can and say, no, I can't finish this. Let me change that team, and I'm going to reassign that to another team. So let's say the frontline people couldn't really figure out what's going on. They can associate it to a more specialized team. And that team may have, one person on it, could be 5 people on that team. But let's say that that's already occurred, and I'm working on it as a team member, and I'm sort of first level from within my team. If I still can't figure it out, I can go in and escalate within the team to another person that may be at a second level, behind me, and have them start to work on it. Or I may have worked on it as the higher level tech, brought it to a place where there's still a couple hours left of work to do, but someone else can work on that, and I can go work on some other tougher problems. I can go in here and de-escalate this request back down to the lower level and have one of those guys continue to work on it and resolve it. So there's lots of really cool things that we can do. It's a very capable system. We've got lots of support for many ways of solving problems. Again, I've got the impact analysis here that I can look at. I've got my audit trail. Audit trail shows me when the request was made and all the different people that have touched it and moved it and when it was escalated, and all, everything about the request is tracked there. My notes are tracked. In this case, I've just created this, so I don't really have any notes. But when I create notes, here I've got the ability to track the information that I want to respond with. I can track my time spent working on a particular piece of the request. So if this is a note, and I went and did some research and I spent half an hour doing it, I can say I spent 30 minutes in here, save that, and I can control here whether I want to notify the customer about this particular note that I'm adding, which is changing it to public, or do I want to just keep it private? And keep it in private is there's no need to notify the customer of what I've done. I'm just adding information in there, versus public, which is notification to the customer, where I'm trying to actually ask them to do something. or to inform them of something about the request. Over here, you can see I've got my service terms over here, my service level agreement that's going on. And then here's my ZENworks integration. Here's where I can manage the bundles and the remote control from within Novell Service Desk. So I don't have to exit my interface to be able to access that kind of thing. Now, I talked briefly about the different kinds of reports. We have a lot of reporting built in to the system. So under the category of service requests, I can pick, for example, incident reports, and then I have all of these reports that are specific to the incident requests that are out there. I've got reports that I can run that are per a technician, so I can see open requests by technician, log time by technician, that kind of thing. I can even run reports on configuration items. So if you care to run a report about a particular item or a particular, like I said, a particular printer, wanting to know how many requests have come in against that particular printer, I can come in here and run a report. I can also have alternatively gone into the configuration of the of all my assets, gone to that printer, and there's a request tab in there, so that is another way to get to the same information. I can just look at the top 10 items by time. What are the top 10 things that technicians have had to work on by time spent? And then again, if none of these reports fit what you're looking for or don't have the right format, you can use those blogs like for the Pentaho report writer to be able to query and do anything that you like. I see that we're getting close to the top of the hour, so I want to be mindful of that. The last thing I want to say is that we do have, the setup is pretty easy in terms of getting the thing up and running. So setting up the ZENworks integration, connecting to your directory, setting up the email, all pretty easy. We do have a section here with a lot of yes/no questions that turn on or turn off certain aspects of the system. And so this is sort of another way of doing a lot of customization with the system. But I wanted to highlight this because when you come in here and when you're looking at a page like this where there's lots of choices and you're not quite sure what each thing represents, throughout the interface, if you click on the Help dialog, we will open up a tab and bring you to a page that is very context specific to the thing that you're looking at, and then telling you all about each one of the items on that page and what the options are for saying yes or no, and what the ramifications are once you do that. So the help inside of here is what I would wish every product did. Don't just take me to the documentation site. Show me where the request information is, or I'm sorry, the help information is for the particular page that I'm looking at. Very, very good for just quickly jumping in, getting my answer, and then getting out. Let me, before I end, let me come over here and take a look and see if we've got any more questions, because we're here at the top of the hour. And yeah, we got basically almost 1 minute left here. Can the quick calls be used by technicians? Absolutely. Quick calls are available for everybody. Quick calls can be submitted via the customer portal. Quick calls can also be submitted via the what I would call it, the user portal, the technician portal. So if I go back over here and I hit the new button here, I would then go in and select the the user who's calling in about the request, and I can go ahead and create the quick calls from here. The one nice thing about these quick calls are that they can be initiated by a person. So there has to be a person that initiates it through one of the portals. I can also create recurring quick calls. So think about that. I could create a request that occurs every Monday, and that request says, go check to make sure the backups ran, go check to make sure the antivirus scanned on the particular servers that it needs to run on, and do that on a regular basis. So every week it reminds somebody that they need to go do it. Somebody can go do it, and they have to go in and check off to say they've done it. So I've got this recorded history on the things that we don't want to forget to do, those things that have to happen on a regular basis. I can schedule those on a monthly basis, on a daily basis, weekly basis, so if every quarter or every month that I need to go in and do something, I can schedule those, and so it'll automatically create those requests for you so that you're not manually doing that. So that's another thing that can happen. The customer reports be saved and accessed from the tech portal. Absolutely. When you create the reports, there is a custom report builder that so if you want things to be created and then viewed from within here, use our report builder, because our report builder is pretty much the same kind of animal as the Pentaho designer, because it lets me publish those. I can actually save them and I've created sample 1 to sample 6. Those can be accessed from within here under the custom report header. I could have also selected where to put them. I could say, what, I want those to be under technicians because it's a technician report. So you'd come over here to technicians and hit this drop down, and then your custom report would be underneath here. That's all using our builder. The Pentaho would be, unfortunately, external because there's no way to leak those into our system at this time. But there is a report builder that's built in and is likely going to be able to give you what you want without having to go out to the Pentaho solution. This Service Desk product does come with its own embedded database, so it's a Postgres database by default. So so if you download the appliance that's got the database already built in, great, it'll leverage it. If you download the appliance or the installer and want to use an external database, you're more than welcome to use that as well. We really don't have any particular database needs that are of any significance. It's pick a database, pretty much any database. There's nothing special we need from them. But there is one that's built in, and we certainly recommend that you can use it, and it'll support, people have asked, how many users or records, millions and millions. So we feel pretty, confident that the database will help you for a very, very, very long time. Can this be used for purchasing like software and hardware? Yes, that's the financial aspect of it, where we can track purchase orders, and when items are made or purchased via PO, and then they're returned and brought in, or not returned, but actually received by the organization. When you go into the asset management system under configuration, I can see if a particular printer, and I don't have one on here, if this was a network camera, I can see where it came from, what is the associated purchase order that it was associated with, so my PO number would show up here, what was its cost, is it a monthly cost that I'm paying, so is it a lease, or was it a right-out purchase? There's all kinds of financial stuff in here that I track as well, so that can be put into the system. We are just a few minutes past the top of the hour, and so I apologize for that, but as you can see, lots that are in this. I can spend 2 hours doing a demo. So if you'd like to have a more one-on-one or one-to-many kind of thing, email me at b6@novell.com. I'd be glad to entertain your requests and carry on the conversation from there. So thanks you again for joining our session, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.